I've been dealing with body dysmorphia for around 3 years now. It started as nothing greater than the average comment giving me a bad day, but it grew inside of me over time into an immeasurable hatred for the body I lived in. School kids would call me names like Fatty McPhee, Burger Boy, Hippo, sometimes even just "you're fat." To them, it was a mere joke, a quick laugh before lesson. The neighbors used to despise me. As per them, I wasn't setting the right example for their kids and the society as a whole. It should have never even started. I just wish they would take it back. Even an apology would have stopped the vines inside my soul from growing. Eventually, it became too late for anyone to take it back, and that was when it truly started. Every night in front of the mirror, I would undress, ready to take a shower. A quick glance in the mirror showed me my body that I was not happy with. I wish I could lose weight, but there was simply no motivation in me to exercise. I was convinced that I would never feel comfortable with myself again. I wanted out. One night while walking into the bedroom with a nervous shiver, I happened to glance at myself in the mirror accidentally. Usually, I would see myself and swiftly shivel my head away. This time, however, it was different. As I stared into the mirror, a pair of eyes that were not my own stared back, a sinister grin widening as I continued to look. The figure in the mirror suddenly opened its mouth as to speak. Then, I heard a voice whisper next to me, "Pop the pills." Suddenly, the figure vanished, and I was left shuddering in fear at what that thing was. It seemed my own body in the mirror spoke to me, my real self not matching that of my reflection. It petrified me as I ran out of the bathroom into my bed. I decided I would shower tomorrow in my parents' bathroom. Mine was no longer safe. The next morning arose abruptly as I strained my eyes to stay open, without really feeling the effects of yesterday hitting me as much as they should have. That was until I noticed a small box lying on my bedside table. "Weight loss pills" was inscribed on the front. My mind relapsed into shock. How could they just appear? My mom and dad weren't even aware of my existence, let alone buying me weight loss pills. Logically, they shouldn't be there, and any other reasonable being would most certainly have thrown them away. But the words seemed too enticing to ignore, so I gave in and took my first one the very same morning. After gulping a few down into my gullet, I stumbled towards the bathroom, still drowsy from sleep, when the whisper rang out again. "Come closer." It beckoned me to the bathroom, and for some foul reason, not of my own mind, I complied. I scampered over to the bathroom with haste, locking the door behind me as I entered its evil grasp. There it was again, but it wasn't me. A fragmented image of the body I had, mixed with the demonic face of another. It spoke once more, in a low, almost disgruntled tone. "Take more," it growled. "The pills shall hide your fears. They are your comfort." The figure then vanished, and once again, I was looking unhappily at my body that I wished wasn't mine, with a single stream of tears flowing down my cheek. I was so mortified I couldn't move. The tears that poured from my eyes were filled with despair. Not being able to fathom the reality that surrounded me, I was left feeling isolated and at the mercy of whatever demon had taken over my conscience. Days passed by, and I got more visions of that creature, telling me to increase the dose. I finished off the first box of 20 in under a week. I thought that by doing what it said, I would escape. It wasn't real. I knew that. At least until a fresh box appeared in the morning after. The pills themselves drastically decreased my energy levels. I felt on the verge of succumbing to fatigue at all times of the day, never seeming to catch a break from this agonizing nightmare. Once again, I wanted out. But this time, I wanted to escape this vicious cycle of seeing that evil person in the mirror. And these pills. These damn pills. But what petrified me to my very core was the fact that the pills were working. My weight started declining, and in some strange sense, I felt happier. I was able to go outdoors again, only with the negative of being drained, but the poisonous comments stopped. Some who had once been the core of the problem now applauded me at the sudden change of my appearance. Many were shocked to see such a drastic change occur in such a short period of time, but nonetheless, I felt enjoyment bursting through my veins. And then, it all collapsed. Such vast amounts of weight loss were evidently extremely dangerous for my health, both physically and mentally. The figure in the mirror began transforming. In the beginning, it was nothing more than my face that changed, but now it seemed to take control over my entire body, feeding at me like some vile parasite that refused to leave me. I was trapped. The final night I saw it, it left me haunting words that I would never be able to forget. Even to this day, I still deal with the shame surrounding my body. It continues to ravage my mind. It was raining thunderbolts outside my house that evening. I had been summoned once more to the bathroom, where that same figure awaited me. The figure had now complete control over my vision, for what stared back at me was my mom. Her hand seemed to grave my shoulder, and she came down close to my reflection's face, then whispered, "I have you, hun." Immediately, I was decimated with the realization that there was no figure. It was my mom, hugging me now from behind. Her tears drained down upon my shoulder, and I too started crying. It had been her all along. She had seen me distressed with my own mind and tried to fix things with a pill. But each night, she supposedly saw me enter the bathroom with a solemn face that wasn't mine. She worried for me every night. She cried for me every day. She just wanted to help me, but she didn't understand how to talk to me about it. Until finally, she came through. Me and my mom have been inseparable since that day. I still struggle with body dysmorphia, but my mom takes away incredible volumes of the agony that comes with it. I feel safe knowing that she's with me. But as for the final night in the bathroom, the words that I have not yet told you came from a dark shadow lurking in the corner. "I will find you again," it spoke in a raspy voice. "And forever, I shall be wary. Whatever that thing may be, I don't want it to return." I walked down the narrow and empty street as I hummed to myself quietly. It was a dark evening. The streetlights weren't on yet, but my house wasn't too far, so I decided to walk. I tried not to acknowledge the looming feeling over my shoulder, and I turned on my phone flash. I decided against looking behind me and picked up the pace, now more determined than ever to get home. "Doll." I heard a voice call behind me, and I froze in my tracks. My blood ran cold. He found me. I suddenly looked and whipped my head back, but didn't see anyone, although the dreadful feeling had already settled in me. I continued my journey home, now running as fast as I could. I quickly unlocked my front door and went inside, shutting it, locking it behind me. My breath came out in short, heavy pants, and I struggled to even out my breathing. I filled up a cup of water and drank it, all while my beating heart subsided. I shook my head and had to clear my thoughts. It couldn't possibly be him. He couldn't have found me. I must have been hearing things. I tried to convince myself that it was all a figment of my imagination, till my eyes caught something I'm sure wasn't there previously. I slowly moved towards my sturdy table, my eyes fixed on a strange object. A bottle of pills. I read the note attached to the bottle of pills left on my table. Doll, I see you've been slacking on your medication. You've been looking quite pudgy lately. Be a good doll and take these for me till I return. 4 in the morning, 4 at night. I'm sure you remember what happens if you're a bad doll. My heart was racing by the time I finished reading. Oh, no. It can't be. I ripped the note apart and threw the bottle of weight loss pills to the ground. I screamed, tears filling my eyes. How did he find me? How did he get in? I sobbed and slid my back against the wall till I hit the floor. It had been a week since then. I refused to leave my house for fear that he'd take me. I couldn't sleep. I'd have nightmares of him coming back and shoving the pills down my throat. I'd even sometimes feel him lurk around the dark corners of the house. I laid on my bed and stared at the bottle of weight loss pills that now sat on my bedside table. I had placed them back there. Who knew that psycho monster was monitoring my every move? Perhaps through a hidden camera in my room? This was pathetic. My condition was pathetic. I had to do something, I thought to myself. I got up and reached for it, clenched the bottle of pills tightly in my shaky hands. I went to the bathroom and lifted the toilet seat. With a set mind, I dumped the contents of the bottle into the toilet and flushed. I almost let out a sigh of relief when I heard the rattle of the door handle. He was here. My heart sunk into the pit of my stomach, and I contemplated ending it all right here. But no, I got away from him once, and I could do it again. I ran back to the bedroom and quickly grabbed my phone, sending an emergency text to my boss and informed him to help me out somehow. Over the past few months, he had become my pillar of support. The monster's heavy footsteps echoed through the house, and my body trembled in fear. I sat still like a doll at the edge of my bed, just as he taught me to. My heart beat faster with every footstep, and I looked straight ahead, not daring to look back as he came in. The squeak of the door to my room opening announced his presence, and I kept my face completely emotionless, as he liked. My pretty doll, he said as he stood beside me. I stayed as still as I could, the pungent smell of alcohol from his breath hitting my nostrils. I nearly gagged as he bent beside me, sniffing my hair, licked the skin of my cheek, letting out a sound of satisfaction. He pet my hair slowly, then gave it a harsh tug, which caused me to let out a hiss I immediately regretted. I'm sorry I moved. I immediately started begging, the tears falling down my eyes fast. He frowned and shook his head aggressively. Why is my pretty doll crying? Dolls don't cry. I nodded my head quickly and got back into position, but the tears didn't stop rolling down my cheeks. He yelled at me to stop crying and smacked my face with the back of his hand hard. Due to the massive impact, I fell on the bed. I touched my bottom lip, which was bruised from his knuckle ring, and I winced. Your face is all fat. You haven't been taking your medication, have you? He yanked my head up as he spoke and spat in my face. I lied that I finished it. My mind instantly went to the empty pill bottle I left on the bathroom floor. I prayed in my head silently that he wouldn't discover it. Liar! He yelled once again and held my face tight in his hands. Why are you so bad? Dolls aren't bad. You used to be my perfect little doll, and now you're all fat." He pinched and dragged my cheeks and arms while he spoke. He mumbled to himself as he reached into his back pocket and pulled out an identical pill bottle that he had given me earlier. I shook my head vigorously. "No, please, no," I pleaded, but he ignored me and held the back of my head tightly, fisting my hair. He ripped the bottle open with his teeth and poured a handful of the pills into his free hand. I scratched at the hand holding my head and squirmed, trying to free myself from his grasp. I screamed at the top of my lungs, hoping someone, somewhere would hear me and come to help, but he used that as an opportunity to dump the handful of pills into my mouth. He closed my mouth shut and with his hand shook me and attempted to force me to swallow them. I choked and fought with all my might, but he held down on my neck, trying to get me to give in. I began seeing spots in my vision. I was too weak to continue resisting. Just as I was about to give up, my door was busted off its hinges and policemen flocked into my room. My tormentor was instantly taken off me. I felt my body heave as I coughed and spat out the pills, and a protective arm wrapped around me. "You're okay. Everything's okay. You're safe now," the owner of the arm said. I looked up with blurry eyes and identified him to be my boss. I finally sighed in relief and watched as the police detained him and took him away. He was charged and found guilty of his crimes. That was the final time I saw him. I started my life anew and in a new city without fear of my father ever coming back.
Sometimes the most deadly of weapons come in the smallest of packages. We never know what could be out to get us. Sometimes our killers might be hiding in plain sight, or even inside us. I watched Dr. Richards intently as he flipped through the pages of my patient chart. I was nervous as I felt a cold sweat run down my spine. He was taking too long to respond, and I knew that was never a good sign. I was shocked when he broke out into a smile as he turned to me and said, "Well, good news, Jeremy. Kidney stones are gone," he said to me, and I felt my nod freeze up at his words. I couldn't believe what he was saying. I've been battling with kidney stones for the past 2 years of my life, and now here I was, being told that the rest were gone. "You mean they're gone completely?" I said to him with excitement, and I watched as he let out a sigh as he went quiet. Well, that was never a good thing, as I went on to ask, "What is it?" He sighed as he went on to explain, "Well, I don't mean to alarm you, and this isn't a big issue, but there's still part of the stone left in your kidney. We can take it out, but we'd have to insert a probe through your urethra," he said, and I winced at the thought of the doctor seeing me down there. "Is there any other option?" I asked him quickly. "Well, you can leave it alone. You can lead a long and healthy life with it. Doesn't seem to be causing any trouble. But the surgery is recommended just to be safe," he said. And I only scoffed. "No, thank you. I think I've been embarrassed enough as it is. I've already lost everything. My dignity's all I had left," I said to him. "Well, since you don't want the surgery, then I guess that's all. Then it means that I can discharge you now," he said. And I nodded my head, relieved to finally get to go home. I knew that there were those who would call me stupid for not taking the surgery, but was sure that the doctor was only overreacting to what was the worst that could happen with a tiny, small stone. My sister came to pick me up later that day, as she refused to allow me to take the bus. To be honest, the kidney stones had ruined my life and relationships. My sister was the only one who was still sticking around. We came to a stop at my house, and she helped me get out of the car. We made our way inside the house, and she helped me sit down on the couch. "Be careful. Don't need you breaking a hip and ending up back there," she warned, and I rolled my eyes before letting her leave. It wasn't like I had much else to do anyway. I groaned as I took out the list of foods that my doctor had advised me to avoid. I watched my weight, but I like to eat what I wanted to, and when I was given restrictions, it was always hard for me to follow. My right side was sore for the next few days, and I tried hard to stick to the new regimen I was given, but it was increasingly impossible. On the 4th day, I gave in and ate some steak and had a chocolate bar. What was the worst that could happen if I ate it once? I had a full steak dinner that night, moaning at the taste. I had always been a fan of red meat, and having missed out on it for the last 6 months, I ate 2 steaks on my own. After I was done, I waited to see the side effects, but nothing happened. I smiled. I should have known that the food charts and doctors' concerns were a bit over the top. I went to bed content that night, knowing that the doctors were lying. I was woken up several hours later when I felt a sharp pain in my abdomen. I tried to ignore it at first, but then the pain returned. This time it was more intense than before. My eyes flew open as I sat up in bed. I heard my stomach grumble loudly as I reached out to touch it, but winced as I felt the spot become tender. I raised up my t-shirt and widened my eyes in shock to see that my stomach was almost twice the size it was before. I tried to stand up on my feet, but stopped as they wobbled slightly. It seemed that the stones hadn't passed after all. I reached for my bedside table to retrieve some medication and gulped down 2 pills. I was relieved when the pain stopped after a moment, but that wasn't going to last, as only a moment later I heard my stomach growl once more. I stumbled out of bed as I made my way over to the bathroom. I stumbled onto the toilet seat. I sighed, feeling the coolness beneath my skin. I felt as though there was something that was crawling under my skin. I tried to stop it, but it only seemed to grow bigger and bigger. I could feel myself getting weak as bile rose up in my throat. I couldn't control myself as I threw up all over the tiled floor. I could see black dots covering my vision as I tried to pee, but it felt as though my bowels were clogged. I stumbled to my feet as I made my way to the sink. I gasped at the sight of my yellow eyes. I could feel the stones inside me getting larger as they pressed down against my bladder. I threw up once more all over the bathroom counter. I felt my feet wobble as I fell to the floor. I tried to stand back up again, but I could no longer feel my legs. I was frozen as the stones fully pressed down on my bladder and the pee rushed out of my body. My body began to convulse as I felt the large stone move through my body. I could barely open my mouth to scream as my groin burned. It began to pass out of my body as I felt a metallic taste in my mouth. It felt as though glass shards were passing through my urethra. My lungs began to burn. And just as I was about to succumb to the darkness, the stone passed out of me with a loud plop. I was completely weak, but felt a sense of relief that it was finally over. But I felt my heart sink when I felt another sharp pain go through me as another stone began to pass through me. This one felt even larger than the last. I let out one final scream as I coughed up blood as the stone passed, before my world went dark.